I remember the day silence became my companion. The house was the same, the walls stood firm, and the door remained where it always had been, yet something sacred was missing. I had given my life in small pieces, early mornings, tired hands, silent prayers whispered into the night. I believed that love, once given with sincerity, would circle back. But life taught me a deeper truth. Love is not a promise of loyalty, it is an offering of purpose. At first, my heart resisted this lesson. I replayed every moment, every correction, every kindness, searching for a mistake big enough to explain the distance. But wisdom arrived gently, like light entering a closed room. It reminded me that children are not mirrors of our sacrifices. They are travelers with their own journeys. We guide them for a while, then heaven tests our faith by asking us to let go. Loneliness became my teacher. In its quiet, I learned to listen rather than complain. I discovered that when people leave, God does not. The nights that once felt empty slowly turned into moments of reflection. I realized that attachment can blind us, but trust opens our eyes. Trust does not deny pain, it gives pain a direction. There were moments when anger tried to take root in my heart. It told me that abandonment deserved bitterness. But divine wisdom corrected me. It said that resentment poisons the one who holds it, not the one who caused it. So I chose forgiveness, not because it was deserved, but because my soul needed peace more than justice. With time, I understood that my role had not ended, it had transformed. Love no longer needed words or presence. It became prayer, it became patience, it became the quiet hope that one day understanding would grow where distance once lived. Even if that day never comes, my purpose remains fulfilled, because I loved without conditions. I stand today not broken, but refined. I no longer measure my worth by who stays beside me. I measure it by the values I lived and the faith I kept. People may leave, but divine purpose never does. And when you choose wisdom over despair, trust over control, and faith over fear, even being left alone becomes a sacred path toward inner strength and lasting peace. Love is often misunderstood as an agreement, something we give with the quiet expectation that it will return to us in the same form, at the same time, and with the same intensity. But true love was never meant to be a contract. It is a duty of the heart, not a transaction of emotions. When we love expecting loyalty as payment, disappointment becomes inevitable. When we love because it is right, because it is sacred, because it is who we are, love itself becomes complete, even if nothing comes back. Many people believe that if they give enough care, sacrifice enough comfort, and remain patient long enough, loyalty will naturally follow. This belief is comforting, but it is not always true. Human hearts are free, influenced by desires, fears, and paths we cannot control. Love does not have the power to chain another person's choices. It only has the power to shape our own character. When someone walks away despite being deeply loved, it does not cancel the value of that love. It reveals its purity. Love given as a duty is rooted in responsibility and moral purpose. A parent feeds, protects, teaches, and prays, not because appreciation is guaranteed, but because love demands it. This kind of love is selfless. It does not ask, "What will I receive?" It asks, "What is right for me to give?" When loyalty fails to appear, the heart aches, but the soul remains clean. There is peace in knowing that you did not withhold goodness out of fear of loss. Expectations are often the hidden source of pain. We rarely suffer because we loved. We suffer because we expected love to bind someone forever. When loyalty becomes an expectation, love becomes heavy. It begins to carry conditions. But divine wisdom teaches that love must be free to be real. The moment it demands return, it loses its spiritual power and becomes a bargain. Loving without a contract does not mean loving without boundaries or self-respect. It means understanding that our duty is to give our best while accepting that outcomes are not ours to control. This acceptance is not weakness. It is spiritual maturity. It allows the heart to grieve without becoming bitter, to remember without being trapped, and to forgive without erasing self-worth. There is a quiet strength in loving, even when loyalty disappears. It proves that your kindness was not borrowed, and your compassion was not dependent on applause. Such love leaves a legacy beyond relationships. It builds inner integrity. It teaches patience. It reflects divine mercy. which gives endlessly without demanding return. In the end, love that expects loyalty may feel justified, but love that stands without guarantees is transformative. It frees the soul from resentment and the heart from regret. Even if loyalty never comes back, love given as duty remains a blessing, not because it changed the other person, but because it refined the one who gave it. When separation happens, the first instinct of the heart is to search for someone to blame. We look inward with guilt or outward with anger, believing that distance must always be the result of failure. But not every separation is born from wrongdoing. Some distances are lessons written by a higher wisdom, moments designed not to punish but to awaken understanding. Separation, when viewed only through human emotion, feels like loss. When viewed through faith, it becomes a message. Life often teaches its deepest truths through absence. When someone we love leaves, the space they create forces us to confront ourselves. It reveals where we depended too much, expected too much, or feared being alone. This does not mean love was wrong. It means love was unfinished in its purpose. Divine lessons are rarely comfortable. They stretch the heart so it can hold greater wisdom. Many people carry the heavy burden of self-blame after separation. They replay every moment, every word, believing that perfection could have prevented distance. But divine order does not operate on human perfection. Even the most devoted care cannot control another soul's journey. Some paths require separation so that both sides can grow in different ways. What feels like rejection may actually be redirection. Separation also teaches humility. It reminds us that we are not the center of another person's destiny. We are participants, not owners. This truth is painful yet freeing. It releases us from the illusion of control and invites trust in a greater plan. Trust does not remove grief, but it protects the heart from despair. It allows us to say, I may not understand this moment, but I believe it has meaning. There is also refinement in separation. It strips away identities built around others and asks us to stand alone. In that solitude, we discover who we are without roles, without validation, without constant noise. This is where faith deepens. When companionship is removed, divine presence becomes clearer. Silence begins to teach. Stillness begins to heal. Human failure says, you were not enough. Divine lessons say, this season has ended. One destroys the soul, the other prepares it. When separation is accepted as a lesson rather than a verdict, bitterness loses its power. The heart learns to release without hatred and remember without chains. Separation does not erase the value of what ONCE existed. Love given was still love. Care offered was still meaningful. The lesson is not to regret what was shared, but to honor it without clinging. Divine wisdom teaches that holding on too tightly can suffocate growth, while letting go with trust allows transformation. In time, understanding replaces confusion. You realize that not every departure is meant to be chased, and not every absence is meant to be filled. Some spaces are left empty so faith can live there. When separation is seen through this lens, it no longer defines you as broken, but as chosen to learn something deeper. And that lesson, though painful, becomes a quiet blessing that shapes wisdom, patience, and inner peace. Loneliness is often feared because it feels like emptiness, like a quiet judgment that no one chose to stay. At first, it arrives heavy and unwelcome, filling the space with questions that have no immediate answers. The heart resists it, searching for distractions, noise, or company to escape the discomfort. But when loneliness is accepted with faith instead of fought with fear, it begins to change its shape. It stops being an enemy and becomes a teacher. In the stillness of being alone, the soul finally has room to speak. There are no outside voices to approve or reject, no expectations to meet, no roles to perform. This silence, though uncomfortable, is honest. It reveals the parts of us we ignore when life is crowded. Loneliness strips away illusions and leaves truth behind. It forces reflection, and reflection refines character. Faith plays a powerful role in this transformation. Without faith, loneliness feels like abandonment. With faith, it feels like preparation. It is the belief that absence does not mean neglect, and silence does not mean rejection. When you trust that a higher purpose exists beyond human presence, loneliness becomes a space where strength quietly grows. The heart learns to lean on something greater than people. Loneliness also teaches patience. It slows life down, removing urgency and distraction. In this slower rhythm, wisdom has time to settle. You begin to understand that constant company is not the same as meaningful connection. Many people feel lonely even in crowds because they have never learned to sit peacefully with themselves. Solitude teaches self-respect and inner companionship. There is refinement in loneliness. It reveals whether your sense of worth depended on being needed, praised, or surrounded. When those things are gone, you are faced with a choice: collapse into self-pity or rise into self-understanding. Those who choose understanding discover resilience they never knew they possessed. They learn that being alone does not mean being incomplete. Loneliness also deepens compassion. Once you have walked through quiet nights and empty rooms, you become more sensitive to the unseen pain of others. Your words soften, your judgments fade, and your patience grows. The heart that has been refined by solitude carries gentleness, not bitterness. Accepting loneliness with faith does not mean enjoying pain or denying sorrow. It means trusting that this season has purpose. Just as fire refines gold, solitude refines the soul. What feels like loss on the surface often becomes gain within. The heart learns contentment without dependency, and peace without constant reassurance. In time, loneliness no longer defines you. It strengthens you. You realize that being alone taught you how to stand, how to listen, and how to believe without proof. And when connection returns, it is no longer sought to fill emptiness, but to share wholeness. The desire for revenge often rises naturally when we feel hurt or abandoned. It promises relief, dignity, and balance, as if pain can be erased by returning it. The mind begins to imagine justice shaped by anger, believing that holding resentment protects the heart. But this belief is an illusion. Revenge does not heal wounds, it deepens them. It keeps pain alive long after the moment has passed, turning a temporary injury into a permanent burden. Forgiveness is commonly misunderstood as surrender or weakness. Many believe that forgiving means forgetting, excusing, or inviting harm again. In truth, forgiveness is none of these things. It is an inner decision to stop allowing someone else's actions to control your emotional life. It is strength because it requires courage to release what feels justified to hold. Weakness reacts, strength chooses peace. When anger is carried for too long, it changes the person who holds it. It shapes thoughts, darkens memory, and steals energy meant for growth. The one who caused the pain may move on freely, unaware, while the one seeking revenge remains trapped, reliving the wound repeatedly. Forgiveness breaks this cycle. It does not rewrite the past, but it reclaims the future. Forgiveness is also an act of self-respect. It declares that your inner peace is more valuable than temporary satisfaction. It recognizes that your life is too sacred to be ruled by bitterness. Releasing resentment does not mean denying the pain. It means refusing to let pain define you. This choice is not easy, but it is liberating. Divine wisdom teaches that justice does not always need human involvement. Some matters are too heavy for the heart to carry alone. When forgiveness is chosen, the burden of judgment is handed over to a higher authority. This act of trust brings relief, not because the wrong disappears, but because the soul is no longer responsible for carrying it. Forgiveness also restores clarity. When anger fades, understanding begins. You may not agree with what happened, but you gain insight into your strength and limits. You learn that your value was never dependent on how you were treated. This realization is empowering. It shifts focus from what was taken to what remains unbroken. Choosing forgiveness is a process, not a single moment. Some days the heart feels light, other days the pain resurfaces. This does not mean forgiveness failed, it means healing is ongoing. Each time you choose not to reopen the wound with resentment, you grow stronger. In the end, forgiveness frees the heart in ways revenge never could. Revenge keeps you tied to the past. Forgiveness allows you to walk forward. It transforms pain into wisdom and loss into growth. By forgiving, you do not lose power. You reclaim it. One of the hardest truths for a parent to accept is that guidance does not guarantee direction. Parents can plant seeds of discipline, kindness, faith, and responsibility, yet they cannot decide how or when those seeds will grow. This reality often clashes with the deep desire to protect, correct, and control. But life teaches, sometimes painfully, that nurturing values and choosing paths are two separate acts. Parents serve as the first teachers. Through words, actions, sacrifices, and silent examples, they shape the foundation of a child's understanding of right and wrong. These lessons are not wasted, even when they seem forgotten. Values planted early sink deeper than we realize. They remain beneath the surface, waiting for moments of struggle or reflection to rise again. Just because they are not visible does not mean they are lost. Yet every human being is given freedom of choice. This freedom is essential for growth, accountability, and purpose. Without it, obedience would be meaningless, and love would be forced. A child must walk their own road, even if that road leads away from those who taught them how to walk. This is not a rejection of values, it is the sting of them. When a child chooses a different path, parents often feel responsible. They question their teachings, replay their mistakes, and wonder where they went wrong. But wisdom reminds us that influence has limits. Teaching is an offering, not an enforcement. Once values are given, they must be trusted to do their work in time. Growth cannot be rushed, and understanding cannot be forced. Letting go of control does not mean letting go of love. Love simply changes its form. It becomes patience instead of correction, prayer instead of instruction, trust instead of supervision. This transformation is difficult because it requires faith in something unseen. It asks parents to believe that the values they planted will eventually guide choices, even if the journey includes detours. This truth also teaches humility. Parents are not saviors, they are stewards. Their role is to prepare, not to possess. Accepting this frees the heart from unnecessary guilt and allows peace to replace constant worry. It shifts focus from outcomes to intentions. Did you love sincerely? Did you teach honestly? If the answer is yes, then your duty was fulfilled. Time has a way of revealing the strength of planted values. Life challenges, failures, and hardships often awaken lessons long ignored. What once sounded like unwanted advice may later become guiding wisdom. The voice of a parent may echo in the mind when the world grows silent. Understanding this truth allows parents to stand with dignity rather than despair. They learn to respect the journey even when it hurts. They learn that love does not mean control, and guidance does not mean ownership. In trusting children to choose their paths, parents also learn to trust the deeper wisdom behind all journeys. When people walk away, the heart naturally looks for something solid to hold on to. Human presence once felt like assurance. Its absence creates fear and uncertainty. In these moments, trust is tested at its deepest level. True strength is not found in chasing those who leave or hardening the heart against pain, but in placing faith where it cannot be taken away. Trusting God when people walk away is not denial of loss, it is surrender to a wisdom greater than human understanding. Human relationships are fragile by nature. They change, shift, and sometimes break without warning. When trust is placed solely in people, disappointment becomes unavoidable. Divine trust, however, offers stability that does not depend on circumstances. It reminds the heart that no departure can remove what was never given by human hands. This belief does not remove grief, but it prevents collapse. Trusting God in loss requires humility. It asks the heart to accept that not every question will be answered immediately, and not every wound will be explained. This acceptance is difficult because it goes against the human need for closure. Yet faith teaches that peace does not always come from answers. It comes from assurance that nothing happens without purpose. When people leave, it is tempting to doubt one's worth or replay the past endlessly. Faith interrupts this cycle. It shifts focus from self-blame to self-reflection, from regret to growth. Trust in God restores identity by reminding the soul that its value is inherent, not assigned by others' choices. Divine trust also cultivates patience. It teaches the heart to wait without resentment and hope without desperation. Waiting does not mean passivity, it means staying open without forcing outcomes. This patience strengthens character and deepens spiritual awareness. It allows healing to unfold naturally, rather than under pressure. In moments of abandonment, divine presence often becomes more visible. The quiet that follows loss creates space for prayer, reflection, and inner clarity. Many discover their strongest faith not in times of abundance, but in moments when all they had left was belief. This is where trust transforms pain into resilience. Trusting God does not mean expecting people to return or situations to reverse. It means believing that whatever remains will be enough. It teaches the heart to release control and embrace acceptance. In this release, peace grows, not because circumstances improve, but because the soul is anchored beyond them. Ultimately, when people walk away, faith teaches that you are not left behind. You are being led forward in a different way. Trust becomes strength, surrender becomes wisdom, and loss becomes a passage toward deeper understanding and lasting peace.